All right, and welcome back to the Sense of Life podcast. I'm Joe, that's Cody, and today we're going to be talking about Nicolas Winding Refn's new Netflix show, Copenhagen Cowboy. We are both pretty big fans of Refn, seen most of his filmography, and we thought it would be neat to do an episode on his new show. I suppose we could start with a bit about Refn, like as a filmmaker, because I think it's kind of a
Yeah,
neat subject.
interesting
He's
guy for sure.
yeah, he started making movies in like the mid '90s, and he's a Danish director. And
Right.
his first film was called Pusher. It's like a crime drama set in Copenhagen. Now I have not actually seen the Pusher trilogy. It's about the only movie that Refn has
Standard.
made that I have not seen. Would be the Pusher films, and Bleeder is the other one that I haven't seen, but everything else he's made I have seen.
Also, Too Old to Die Young, we have not finished, technically.
Sure.
So,
Uh, Speaking strictly of movies, then yeah.
yeah.
Um, and his movies are um, they're fairly interesting in that they range from something pretty standard. I mean, not standard, but something that is easily approachable to like a the modern audience, which is a derogatory term in my opinion. Something like Drive, which most people can sit down and appreciate, to his
Yeah.
more bizarre movies that I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I actually prefer. This might be a bold take, but I actually prefer his weirder movies like the Neon Demon and Only God Forgives. But I do think that Drive is probably his most technically impressive movie.
Yeah, I think I agree. I also have not seen any of the Pusher movies. I own the first one. I think the other two are on like Tubi, so I'll eventually watch them. But I do know that at least from like watching Fear X, which was kind of an interesting movie he made. Not great, but not terrible. I think it was his like third movie, I want to say.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you what you thought of Fear X, because I remember you were telling me that you
It
were
was
watching it.
it was okay. I think about the first two-thirds of it I really liked, and I remember I don't really remember much about it now, but the ending I felt a little bit was it just didn't really work. I don't think, but it wasn't bad, and I think uh, the interesting thing for me about his career is he starts out with these like kind of gritty, kind of masculine crime movies early on in his career, and then he pivots with Drive into this like neo noir, uh, which is still crime, but it's less gritty and more stylish.
Right.
It has a lot of echoes of. I mean, this is like basic stuff at this point of Walter Hill's The Driver.
Yeah.
It was his second movie from 1978. It is, I mean, it is literally the same movie, just made by two different directors,
Yeah.
and starring Ryan O'Neal. It's quite good. I really like it. It's different enough from Drive for it to be an experience in itself, and it's just great to see like a 70s car chase kind of movie.
Right.
Um, and so anyway, Refn pivots from these kind of gritty masculine crime movies with Drive, and then into Too Old to Die Young, into these kind of like more, I guess, feminine, I guess, type of filmmaking of like just very um censorious, sensual, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Sensual. Yeah.
Yeah, and he um and then into going into the Neon Demon, where his really baller quote was every beneath every man is a 16-year-old girl waiting to get out.
An insane quote. I I honestly I think that if anyone were to well, first of all, would you recommend Copenhagen Cowboy to the viewers?
I would recommend it to fans of Nicolas Winding Refn.
Yeah,
That's what I would say.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I would not recommend it as an introduction to Nicolas
No,
Winding Refn. No.
that's kind of what I was gonna lead into, which is that I think if you were to watch Copenhagen Cowboy, I would recommend watching a few of his movies first, like maybe start with something like Drive or Bronson,
Yeah.
and then I would take the dive into his more interesting like I think the bridge between the old and the new Refn is actually Only God Forgives, because
Yeah, I
uh,
think I mean what I was saying was like Drive is like um Too Old to Die Young is the new Refn.
yeah,
Drive is the pivot point. Like he's
sure.
making the turn
I
into the new stream.
you know what, you might be right. Yeah, Drive is. I mean, I
Because
guess
it has the echoes of the old Refn, but it's got his new stuff that it's kind of announcing that, and then Only God Forgives like abandons the kind of noir, like, well, doesn't abandon it. It abandons the kind of darkly lit classical noir to the kind of phantasmagoric, psychedelic, colorblind Refn
yeah,
thing.
yeah. That's another interesting point about Refn, is that he is colorblind, and
Yeah,
a lot of his recent projects, The Neon Demon, Too Old to Die Young, Copenhagen Cowboy, Only God Forgives, even Drive to some extent, are
yeah,
very much a neon filled experience. They're very colorful movies and television shows.
yeah.
Um,
And I was actually just thinking about this the other day. A lot of movies post Drive have tried to ape this. Like John Wick does this kind of thing, and like Atomic Blonde and all those kind of movies like that.
right.
Um, I think what's interesting, and I can't remember exactly where this train of thought came from. I think I was listening to a podcast I like called Agitator, where they talk a lot about like Japanese movies and shit, and they like
Mhm.
Refn as well. Um, they were talking about how certain filmmakers, and this wasn't anything to do with Refn, but like it's really interesting when the type of filmmaking that's happening is a rather than using a what's the word I'm looking for, rather than having a money to fix your problems, basically the things that you do to film are solutions to problems rather than just like um, having enough money to fix it. So, generally speaking, a lot of lower budget films are more interesting than higher budget films because they have to figure out how to do it without money. And even when you go back to like movies from like the silent era and the beginning of sound, it's like these are people that are just figuring out how to do this,
Yeah,
and it makes it so interesting. And how this relates back to Refn is the phantasmagoric neon stuff doesn't even strike me as like him being just like pretentious and stylish, which I think a lot of people think he is. It's literally because he cannot see it.
right. There was some sort of quote where he said something along the lines of that because of his color blindness, when he's lighting a scene, when he's like setting up the when he's actually setting up to create the visual of the scene, uh if it doesn't look interesting to him, like what would be the point of even making the movie? Like
Right. Yeah.
what would be the point of making something you don't find visually stimulating? So the fact that his movies are so they pop so much with their colors, it's I can't I would like to see how he sees his movies just from his own eyes,
Yeah.
'cause I'm curious what that looks like. Uh, yeah, what an interesting fella. He's kind of weird. People seem to think he's really pretentious and like if you look at interviews where he's talking to like William Friedkin and stuff like that, there's like
Yeah.
this weird there's like this weird perspective that he's just arrogant and thinks he's like the greatest filmmaker ever. But then you actually watch the you actually watch the interview with Friedkin, and it's literally just two guys just talking shit, and Friedkin is like busting Refn's balls and all that, and it's
Yeah.
it's actually a really funny interview. If you're familiar with Friedkin and or Refn, I would definitely recommend checking out that interview. It's great.
Yeah. Refn is a kind of in the lineage of Friedkin as far as filmmakers go,
Mhm.
and um, that interview, like Refn's like, well, I mean, I think Only God Forgives is a masterpiece. And then Friedkin's like, call an ambulance. This guy thinks this movie's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree. I've only seen Only God Forgives twice, but I liked it both times, and I liked it even more the second time.
I only watched it once and I
Mm,
liked it,
yeah.
but I don't like it more than Drive or the Neon
Oh,
Demon or
that's fair.
stuff. So.
Um, but yeah, no. Just one more point I wanted to make before we kind of move on from Refn, unless you have any other things to say
Um,
specifically before we get into the show.
I know that one of the first things I wrote, and I published it on Medium at a time when I thought I was going to write on Medium more often,
Mm,
was a piece about this advertisement that Refn made for Hennessy, I think. Yeah,
yeah.
Hennessy. It's pretty cool. It's out there. I think you can search for it. But
Yeah, his visuals. Um, I think I said this when we were watching the show. He strikes me as the kind of guy that would really excel at producing music videos.
yeah,
Not
I
in a
think he's
derogatory
probably
way, of course. That sounds derogatory to be like, yeah, I know you make movies and television shows, but you'd be
yeah,
you'd be really good at music videos. But no, I think just visually, he brings something interesting to the table.
yeah. There's so I think there's like a behind the scenes documentary on Netflix about Copenhagen Cowboy. It's like 30 minutes long. I didn't watch it, but I saw a clip of it where it's like, there's and I guess we're about to get into the show here, but there's those scenes. There's these kind of like um, breaks where we cut to this like blue background with fog in it, and we're just kind of circling around Miu,
Yeah,
the main character, and there's like flashing lights, and it was showing how they shot that. I mean, it's exactly what it looks like. She's in the middle. There's a dolly track that there he's circling around, and there's people with like these lightsaber looking things that are just
yeah.
like
I think I know the clip you're
fucking
talking
around with
about.
them.
Yeah. But yeah, the one point I wanted to make before we move on to the show is that if you do want to watch Refn's movies, most of them, at least if you live in North America, I don't know if Tubi is available outside of North America, but um, a lot of his movies are on Tubi. Um, and I mean, his other stuff can pretty easily be found on pretty basic streaming platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime. I don't know
Yeah.
what the situation is with HBO Max because we don't have that here in Canada.
I think Drive shows up on there every once in a while.
Okay.
Drive is pretty easy to find. You could go to like a disc replay or something if
Yeah.
you have that or anything. Um, Neon Demon and Too Old to Die Young are on Amazon. Copenhagen Cowboys on Netflix, of course. I watched Fear X on Tubi. I think it shows up on Mubi every once in a while.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so he's it's not hard to find.
Yeah.
It's out there.
His movies are like I said, pretty easy to find if you have access to essentially a free streaming service and two other basic ones that most people have access to.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I suppose we should get into the actual show, Copenhagen Cowboy.
Yeah.
It's it just came out like literally last
A
month.
month ago, I think, or something. Yeah.
Yeah, January. And it's I think it's definitely a very surrealist like a supernatural kind of noir series.
Yeah.
It almost has like a comic booky feel to it as well. Or
Yeah.
maybe like it's almost like a serialized kind of, well, I guess it's a show, but
Yeah.
uh
It is a serialized
yeah.
kind of.
It's basically about this girl named Miu who is she's like a psychic. She
Witch
or
or
some
something.
sort of witch creature. Maybe not creature. She's she is like we'll call her a witch probably for the duration of this, and she seemingly just goes around and is put in situations with various pretty shitty people, and
Yeah.
they want her to use her powers to bring them good fortune and or good luck, and it doesn't always work out for them.
Yeah, the first episode it starts with she winds up at this brothel run by what I can only call Albanian Andrew Tate,
Yeah,
and and she's this woman wants to conceive a baby, but she's clearly too old to be having a baby, and um, so she wants this witch sorcerer thing. I think there was a clip of Refn talking about it being an alien.
an alien.
Um, yeah, something like that. Entirely possible.
Fair enough. At this point, as we were watching the show, like it gets very bizarre, and it got to the point we were like, you know what, fuck it, we're just in for the ride at this point. It's nothing is surprising me with this anymore. I mean, except for everything,
Yeah.
because and the fact that everything is surprising me doesn't surprise me, and that's kind of what it got to with this show. Um,
Yeah, it's got a very slow start, which I think Refn is kind of into right now. This kind of slow cinema, Robert Bresson, Paul Schrader thing
yeah,
of um, just scenes going on very long, and you're just. I mean, it's a kind of show that you can almost just kind of put on in the background and like occasionally glance at your phone or whatever, and you're not missing a whole lot. It's I think it's part of like Refn kind of trying to adapt to the modern audience, quote unquote.
mm,
Um, because I noticed that like occasionally I'd glance at my phone because like the first episode is kind of boring, and I don't even necessarily mean that in a mean way or a bad way. It's just not a lot happens, and it's pretty clear what is happening.
right.
Um, and Too Old to Die Young is kind of where he starts with this, where it's like episodes are range from an hour to 2 hours long, and basically 30 minutes of that is things happening.
Yeah. The good thing with Copenhagen Cowboy as opposed to something like Too Old to Die Young is that every episode has been, I guess they properly managed the budget of this show, because
Yeah,
every episode is around exactly 52 minutes on Netflix.
yeah,
So there it's you're not going to encounter an issue where there's an episode that is just really bizarrely slow in relation to others just because of how long it is. But yeah, no, I did like that you referred to. I did like that you referred to the pimp as Albanian Andrew Tate, because
yeah,
Uh, like literally,
I think originally I called him Danish Andrew Tate when I was watching it, and then I got corrected that it was he's an Albanian.
yeah, it makes it even better because he's like a foreign guy just in Denmark doing this sort of
Basically creating
exploitation
these,
shit.
yeah, basically creating these kind of like uh, OnlyFansy type girls in this house of horrors and sadness.
Yeah,
Um,
under the guise of it being a modeling agency, and then it's just he
yeah,
just makes them into prostitutes or whatever, and
yeah,
it's it's a pretty sad state of affairs. The first place that she visits is this weird like 60-year-old Albanian lady's house, and then in the basement is just a bunch of women that are just essentially hostages.
I think one of them tries to escape and gets just like killed. I think if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the show also has like this recurring because each episode kind of has like the main character Miu is like going to different places in each of the episodes, but there is like a recurring antagonist character that kind of shows up that we sort of follow throughout most of the show, which is this weird like blonde kid named, well, not a kid, this weird blonde young guy named Nicholas, and I guess for a while we weren't sure if he was a vampire or not.
Yeah, it's this.
I'm still not sure actually.
It's I don't know. Sometimes I'm getting a little bit tired of the surrealist but not realist but not kind of attitude in a lot of modern stuff, even in Refn here, because like, is he like? I'd almost prefer to just have the answer over whether this guy is a vampire or not.
Yeah, because
uh,
I suppose the thing that made me think he was a vampire, I guess, well, first of all,
several things.
well, yeah, several things. But at the end of the first episode, um, one of the ladies of the night, we'll say, that escapes from this Albanian Andrew Tate guy's house. She's supposed to meet Miu at a diner, and she ends up getting picked up on the side of the road by this Nicholas guy, and then he strangles her in some sort of like pig farm that his family owns, and at the end of the episode he just kind of roars, and he roars, and
Yeah,
it's like an 80-yard in like actual roar, and I was like, oh, this guy's like some sort of weird demon or something, and he he speaks to what is later revealed to be his sister in like a spiritual world.
yeah.
But it at first you think he's just talking to himself, like he's fucking crazy. And then later on you realize like no, there's some actual like mystical shit going on here because
But he's still fucking crazy.
well,
Like,
yeah, he is still crazy. Um, I found it very amusing that there was very little action in the show for like probably the first 3 episodes, and
yeah,
then in the fourth episode, it starts off essentially with Miyu finally coming face to face with this guy, and she knows that he killed her friend, the one that escaped Albanian Andrew Tate's house. I can't even remember the character's name because he was only
yeah.
in like the first episode.
Couldn't tell you.
Um, but yeah, she knows that he killed her friend because like I guess her powers, she can just sense it, and he chases her, and she just whoops his ass. She just she straight up kicks his ass, and she leaves him in this pig farm that his family owns, just on the ground,
Mhm.
and the pigs like half eat the guy, and he's just horribly deformed for like the latter half of the show, and I found that very very interesting that that they opened the fourth episode with just, oh, by the way, she's very good at hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, she's like a. This is why it kind of feels like a comic book. She's basically a superhero,
Yeah,
and um, I mean, it's called Copenhagen Cowboy, so she's like this kind of man with no name type figure coming in, just kind of basically each episode she just kind of falls into these different situations. There's Albanian Andrew Tate, and then we go into the second episode with the Dragons Inn, I think, is where that happens, and she meets this uh, nice lady, kind of, maybe.
maybe,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, she runs into she finds this this Chinese restaurant. I think it was called the Dragon Palace,
Something like that, yeah.
and it's run by this Chinese lady, and she helps her deal with. I guess this was like a subplot that kind of follows through the rest of the show. Is that
Yeah.
her child was taken by this Chinese gangster named Mr. Chang, and
Yeah.
he has her daughter, and Miu basically makes it kind of her mission, that is kind of her motivating factor for the rest of the show, if you think about it, to reunite this Chinese woman with her daughter, because that's kind of, she needs money to make a deal with this Mr. Chang guy, and then she starts working with like these drug dealers to make money to be able to get her daughter back.
Yeah. Basically, she just kind of winds up in all these different scenarios, these different characters, like Chang and um, this brother vampire dude kind of come up, and it all kind of comes to a head with the sister getting resurrected as this like revenant type thing with superpowers. I don't know.
Yeah,
I kind of got lost.
yeah. The
end.
the final episode of the show is just very
Odd.
very odd, and it wasn't even necessarily that I wasn't paying attention to it.
Yeah.
At some point in like the second to last episode, the Nicholas he kills his mother. I think. I think he killed her.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure he did. And like her blood resurrects the his sister, who has similar, but it seems more powerful abilities to Miu, the main character. To the point where, like, if you watch the show, you'll see that Miu is always wearing like this blue tracksuit.
Yeah.
And her outfit is always coordinated around that. Even like some episodes, she's wearing like a blue kind of jacket over it, but it's always in service of this sort of aesthetic that they had with her character. She kind of reminded me of like the bad guy from Despicable Me. to make an unflattering comparison visually.
Was trying to steal the moon or whatever.
Yeah, the guy that was trying to steal the moon. I haven't seen that movie in since I was a child, I think. But yeah, she has
been like 13 years for me.
Yes, it's very very similar aesthetic look to even the haircut is kind of similar. But
Despicable Miu. That's the title.
Despicable Miu. Fuck. Is that going to be the name of the episode?
Yeah, calling it now. Despicable Miu.
Okay, fair enough. And in the last episode, like the sister of Nicholas, she's set up to be like the big bad There's set up to be like the final confrontation, and after she's resurrected, she puts on a red jumpsuit that is very much it looks like it was made by like the same sort of I don't even know what to say. Like she even has like a little emblem on her chest to the side.
Yeah, it's like the same athletic apparel company or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it was I think I actually said fuck off like out loud when I saw that she had a red jumpsuit to like go against Miu in her blue jumpsuit. The problem was that I think this is the last bit where we'll kind of be talking about the plot, because we haven't really summarized the plot. We've just kind of talked about like basic bits and pieces of it. I mean, if people are watching this, I would assume they've seen the show, or I would recommend they watch it before they check this out. I mean, it's a little late now if they started.
Yeah.
It's a short show. There's only 6 episodes, so you could crank it out in a weekend, honestly, if you wanted to.
And I think I'd recommend doing that. I tried to watch it like an episode a day or something, and you can't quite get into the mood of the show unless you're just basically binging it.
Yeah, I mean, we watched the last 3 episodes in one sitting, and the first 3 were kind of sporadically throughout a week, and
yeah.
It was a much better experience as like a continued stream of consciousness with the 3 episodes in a row that we watched.
Yeah.
But yeah, the show sets up like this confrontation. Like she even puts on the red jumpsuit, so you're like, oh, is there going to be like a brawl? Because they've shown that the main character is very good at like hand to hand combat, but it doesn't actually. There's no conflict at the end. There's a shot of the antagonist shooting lasers out of her eyes.
Yeah, she like Supermans her, and then hard cut to my other favorite character, Croatian Alan Dershowitz. Who...
yeah. I think the character's name was like Miroslav or something like that. He's like this. I think he's supposed to be like a former gangster that works as a lawyer.
Yeah, I think he's kind of like my partially corrupt like crime lawyer.
Yeah,
classic archetype you see in like a lot of great noir movies. But
yeah, exactly.
He helps out Miu at some point. He kind of shows up here and there, and then the great like fucking Nick Fury cameo at the end is Hideo Kojima over Zoom.
Yeah. The show ends. They were very clearly setting up like there's more to this story. That was very clear.
I think they're going to do another season or something.
I hope that Netflix doesn't follow their trend of canceling every single project they have going to keep whatever the fuck that pedophile ass cartoon is that they have. I forget what it's called, but it's
talking about Big Mouth.
Yeah, they cancel like everything that they make, and then they just keep making seasons of that. But
yeah.
No, it ends with this crime lawyer very frightened that Miu is going to like kill him, and so he decides to Zoom call Hideo Kojima, and Hideo Kojima tells him over a presumably a Skype call or something, I have no idea, a Zoom meeting to find the giants, and the giants will protect him. And it's like, you can't throw giants in at the last 5 minutes. I mean, you can.
He did.
You can throw Hideo Kojima in the last 5 minutes. I don't know about giants, but it was the problem is that I was spoiled that with the fact that Kojima was in this as like a guest appearance, so I knew he was going to show up somewhere. But I did not expect it to be as like a MCU style like cameo at the very end. where he's just
Want
like
to talk about the Metal Gear Solid initiative?
he Metal Gear Solid. He just straight up he shows up at the end, and it sets like if they set him up. If the show actually does get a second season, they've set Kojima up to be like a main character, or like at least a significant one. He understands the nature of Miu's powers, and he's like an old associate of this crime lawyer. It would be very. I doubt that Kojima would be like a serious main character because he has other shit to do. But
He's also not a particularly good actor.
no,
If this is anything to go off.
no, it was very funny because it came off as though Refn was like, oh, don't worry about it, Hideo. The day that we're doing the filming, we'll just Skype. We'll just send you a Zoom call and just put on some sunglasses, and we'll tell you what the lines are.
I'll post the lines in the chat.
Yeah,
and you just read them.
Posted the lines in the chat. They had a Discord server and everything. I'm sure that Refn and Kojima have a Discord server. This would not surprise
I hope
me.
so. That'd be incredible.
But yeah, Kojima shows up at the end, and it was very hilarious and out of nowhere. And I think that was kind of the intent. Like, if you know who Kojima is and you're watching this, you're like, what the fuck is he doing here?
And Refn makes, I think it's his first like Hitchcock style cameo in one of his work.
Yeah,
where he's just this kind of like silent pervert getting cocaine or some shit.
Yeah, when Miu is working with the drug dealers, there's a part where she's delivering cocaine to this group of 3 guys, and I'm pretty sure one of them. I looked this up. One of them is like a Danish radio personality, and another one was a Danish filmmaker, and then Refn himself. So it's just like he's. I assumed they weren't playing themselves, but
well, that'd be kind of funny.
Well, because Kojima is playing a character allegedly that was literally just named Hideo. So, that's amusing. But no, Refn shows up in 2 scenes in the show, both in the same episode, and says nothing. And the entire time I was like, please God, don't say anything. Like, I want him to just show up in the show and say nothing. And they delivered.
Yeah. And I guess we're kind of moving away from kind of summarizing here, but I think what I like about it is as we're kind of hurtling towards what I could only call the end of the kind of Marvel run, if the kind of reactions to the last few, including this new Ant-Man movie, has gotten like some of the lowest ratings of any Marvel movie.
Right.
It's apparently really bad. As most of them, pretty much all of them since Endgame have been. I tried to watch the Doctor Strange movie and I just felt sad. Sam Raimi's been reduced to this dreck. But anyway, that Refn is kind of doing this like comic book, still very pulp noir kind of thing that he's used to with his own kind of artistic flair. But it's got that like superhero kind of vibe to it. And I don't know. I thought that was an interesting choice. This is definitely not my favorite Refn work, but
for sure.
I think it's interesting. Worth watching if you like Refn's work. But.
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate takeaway is that if you like what Refn does, you'll probably enjoy this. If you like fairly surreal, dreamlike sort of productions. I would agree that it is very superhero like. Refn also made that point explicitly about Drive. That Drive is kind of, I think he literally called it the best superhero movie ever made. Which is which is incredible that he said that.
Yeah.
Just the idea of just like, yeah, Drive is the best superhero movie ever, and it's I guess I was going to say it's kind of like a superhero movie, but it's a bit more grounded. But then you're like, well, it's also a supernatural, uh,
Yeah, I
dreamlike
would
TV show.
grounded is not the word I'd use.
I
It's
suppose
just
that's what I would
not.
use with Drive. I guess
Yeah, yeah. It's just it.
it's
I
different
guess
from what every other superhero kind of thing is now.
yeah. It feels more like dark fantasy noir than like Spider-Man, but it still has that kind of tone, not tone, but that kind of structure of like a episodic superhero kind of thing.
Right. I maybe it's just Europeans, but the part where they just all kind of accept that she's this magical individual with powers. Like this weird Albanian lady in the first episode is like parading her around to all her friends and like snipping off little bits of her hair and like giving it
Yeah.
to her friends. I was like, what the fuck? This is it's just so bizarre. Um and yeah, I would recommend it.
As far as like looking through Nicolas Winding Refn's oeuvre, a word
Mm.
I quite like, oeuvre. Um, how do you think it stacks up? Like,
Mm. That's a good question because I'm more of a movie person than a TV show
me too. Yeah.
person. So what I can say about this as far as TV shows is I prefer ones that aren't ridiculously long, like in episode wise. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
fairly easy to consume show in the sense that there are only 6 episodes and they're
yeah.
all roughly around an hour. Um, I'd say I don't know. It's not my favorite. I still any day of the week would watch Drive or Only God Forgives or The Neon Demon before uh Copenhagen Cowboy, but that's not really a negative toward the show, just more um a positive toward those movies.
Sure.
I don't know how I think it's difficult to rank a TV show in comparison to movies, or at least I think so.
I think so too, but I also think that Refn kind of use his TV shows as really long movies.
Sure.
At least with Too Old to Die Young, he'd say that. But with Copenhagen Cowboy, it really did feel like a series. It didn't really feel like a movie
Right.
in the way that Too Old to Die Young does, and which is why Too Old to Die Young's kind of hard to watch. Um, I'd like to eventually finish it because I've heard people that I like to listen to say that it's some of the best work he's ever done.
Right.
You just have to get to that point, which is kind of the problem. um,
Yeah.
and um, yeah, I like what he did there. I think I want to see if a second season comes, which it seems like it might,
Yeah.
um, because the ending, it's very much a classical comic book cliffhanger. So
Yeah.
there's kind of two kind of main threads that are not complete. It's like who won that final fight, and then who are these giants, and what do they mean?
Yeah. I mean,
And,
it's a mix of like the comic booky ending that's a cliffhanger, and a
yeah,
mix of like the artsy "oops, nothing happened" kind of ending. If
yeah,
that makes any sense at all. Maybe not nothing happened, but they I guess it was very clearly setting up a second season. So hopefully Netflix does renew that for a second season. And ideally, Kojima would keep his presence to just another Zoom call.
yeah,
He really isn't that good of an actor. Um, it 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 appears to be that if they were to follow it up, you'd kind of have to just explain what the hell happened with that battle that allegedly took place at the end. Uh, yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah,
So to kind of wrap it up here, the as far as like we were talking about Nicholas Winding Refn's body of work, I think this is, as far as his late career, is kind of a lesser achievement here of Copenhagen Cowboy. I mean, um, but I think it also is going to kind of depend on the second season if that happens. But still worth watching. I recommend watching his other stuff more. Probably start with Drive. The kind of thematic underpinnings that he's working with in Copenhagen Cowboy is kind of similar stuff that he's been doing for the past 10 or so years. Anyway, um, he likes a lot of those kind of spin around type sequences where there's that really funny one where the Draco Malfoy looking dude is like opening a present and it's spinning around and you see his mom and his pervy dad's reaction. Um,
that scene was great. There was at about halfway through the show, we started realizing that Refn was repeatedly using this sort of shot where the camera spins around in a circle. Sometimes it's even moving around the room as it is spinning in a circle.
yeah.
But in that particular sequence, he's like opening a gift, and the camera shows him, and then it shows his parents, and then it shows him again, and it's like he prides himself on being this this sort of like killing machine. And then to see him struggling to open like a little present at the table, and like his mother has to go get some scissors, and you're like, oh, he's gonna like cut off the ribbon on the thing, and then he just sort of stabs the box, and blood flies everywhere. And then the camera
No
turns.
idea what was in it, but
Yeah, the camera turns around again, and you just see his parents gleefully like clapping and laughing as he just stabbed this present that they gave him.
yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty great. As far as Copenhagen Cowboy, I think that's pretty much it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not much else to say. Check it out if you're interested. If you haven't seen Refn's movies, I genuinely would recommend checking those out. Those first.
Yeah, we're recording this on Sunday the 19th, so it should be going up on Monday, depending on how things work out.
Yeah,
Um, we'll be back on, I think, we'll next episode will go up on Monday the 6th. It's kind of the plan, and we'll be talking about one of my favorite movies, Harakiri, 1962, I think, directed by Masaki Kobayashi, and renowned, maybe not renowned, but famous workhorse director Takashi Miike's 2011 remake of that movie, and pretty excited about that. So hopefully you'll be there with us. Thank you very much. This has been Sense of Life, and talk to you soon.
yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.